Like we said, I'm Reese, this is Naima, and we're working with Mark. Our kind of main focus is connecting with members of the family this summer, interviewing descendants of Augusta, who is the wife of James Anderson, who I know you mentioned you wanted to learn some more about. So, yeah, just
Right.
building her story through learning about other people's stories. So, I just want to stress that there's no like right or wrong answers here. It's really just to get to know more about you and see, yeah, how the family members live their lives nowadays. Did you have any questions
Okay.
before we get started?
None really.
Just like what got you interested in your family's ancestry and what has your experience been so far?
I think I've always been interested in it. Like, it's not something new. Like, I always like question my grandfather or my parents about, where their peoples were from and what they were doing. We always kind of like knew to an extent, but my grandfather doesn't really know his peoples as far as like his mother, some of his aunts maybe or something like that, and obviously his siblings, brothers and sisters. But yeah, like we was always interested, I always wanted to know things like that. I didn't like really know much, what I mean? My mother didn't really tell me that much, but like the basics. So like I guess it all takes time anyway, what I mean, as you grow older, you start to learn more things. But yeah, I always wanted to know.
When did you officially start that journey of building an ancestry account and looking more in depth into your family history?
It probably couldn't have been like more than 7 years or something like that. My mother came home, she had the kits or whatever, and actually it was just one kit. And she didn't want to, like, she was like stalling on it. She didn't want to do it. So I was like, oh, let me just do it. You got to go to actual places and see records. I wanted to do it. You know what I mean? It's just like, you don't have the time. Like, I'm the most like, the person like, yeah, we got to know. Like, I know something's up. Like, you know what I mean? I got to know where my people are from. So I was always into it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't think they're like too much into it. I mean, I don't know why, but it just is what it is.
Have you found information that was surprising or unexpected in your family history? Or you're like, wow, this is something I want to share, but I didn't know?
Yeah, definitely when I started looking into like the Connecticut connection, just knowing like how long my grandfather's family has been here. And then knowing that some of them were in Stockbridge, I believe. But we always interested like seeing pictures of, those old paintings are like round, like oval type.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we were tight knitted, but not really. I think it's just the generations kind of split apart. And people had families and they just started doing their own thing. So it wasn't like everybody was keeping the family history in line.
Is there anyone else in your family who's as interested as you, or is there like someone who you talk to a lot about these kinds of things? Or
Mostly like my grandfather, your grandparents, because they know the most. Actually, my father knew a lot. You know what I mean? He kind of knew a lot too. He's like older. He was born like the 50s. Yeah. He kind of knew some things that other people didn't. Talking to my grandmother too.
Speaking of family, could you tell us a bit more of your family structure and maybe what you've learned from them before embarking on that journey?
Well, how I got a little bit closer into it when I started doing the ancestry was when Mark got in contact with me, Mark Cottrell. I didn't know about Mark. I didn't even know we had family in Connecticut. Because I have a sister too that is, she's from Connecticut. And like my
Mm.
mother was out in Connecticut like when she was younger because she had left the family and she kind of did her thing out there for a while. I didn't even know about my sister.
so how did you get in touch with Mark? And then also, how did you find out about your sister?
Well, Mark contacted me through Ancestry.com. He sent me a message and he's like, yeah, I think we're family, Every little bit he's been going through, he's been telling me too. And he showed me pictures of his family and his moms. And it was like, yeah, it was like, I loved it. You know what I mean?
Or,
You wanted to know about my sister too?
oh,
Oh, yeah,
yes,
yeah, your
yes.
sister, yeah.
So she had did the Ancestry too. Like I didn't know about her till like recently. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Probably a couple years ago. So that like was like wow. It was very, I mean, surreal for my mother too. But the way we contacted, I think she talked to a cousin of mine because there's another cousin of mine that's my grandmother on my mother's grandmother. Her mother's aunt and her children, one of her daughters contacted us, and I guess she was talking to Mark, and I mean, and she contacted my sister Jade had contacted her as well. I can't think of her name right now off the top of my head. She contacted her, and she contacted my mother. That's how all that got connected.
And how many siblings do you
As far as my mother,
have?
it's just me and her daughter Jade. There's like five of us on my father's side, and I have like a lots of cousins. You know, I just started meeting my mother's cousins not too long ago, all within like probably like the last 10 to 12 years.
Could you tell us a bit more about your relationship with your siblings? Like, did you grow up together? Were you guys based in the same location prior to the move to Connecticut?
I know my grandfather has been in Massachusetts for a long time. As far as like my mother moving to Connecticut, she had I don't know exactly like her whole timeline, but I know she came back, we lived in Medford. You know what I mean? That's what we lived in a community called West Medford. And that's where my grandmother and my grandfather, they had bought a house and they moved there. And I believe my grandmother's sister and her husband had moved in a house out there too. So my mother had left. She came back to Medford, and I guess she had, she started going with my father, but she had knew him, you know what I mean, from the neighborhood, the community, because she grew up out there. I think
Yeah.
before then, before they was living in there, a lot of my family was in the area of Warren Street in Boston, Massachusetts. In that neighborhood, I had a whole bunch of family out there. You know what I mean? So I grew up with my cousins. We all went to school, and like, I mean, everybody knew each other in the community. Just the history of that area in itself. Yeah, but way how I grew up, it was like it was the best. Like that's the way you want to grow up with all your family, your cousins, and
Do you have any memorable stories, or do you recall how your childhood home was like, your home life during that time?
average doing events on summers with your family, always being out in the park, you know what I mean, or outside in front of your street, going up and down the neighborhood, going to the store, getting the newspaper for your grandmother on Sunday morning, getting the milk or whatever, all that. It's just regular thing. Learning how to take the bus route. I mean, everybody knew each other, so it was a good time.
Do you look like your siblings?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I got like a mixture of like both my father and my mother. Definitely got his forehead, you know what I mean? And I got the bridge nose too from them. So like my cousin, you know what I mean, my uncle and his kids, they all got that bridge nose, you know what I mean? And I think that's because they're brothers, so they the way their genes, I don't know how it works, but we kind of look similar. But my aunt, my father's sister, her kids look a little bit different, but we all look alike. Yeah, you can definitely tell. Not necessarily on my mother's side. I do see resemblances, like some in some places, yeah. Especially with her daughter, my sister.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean, on my mother's side, because she looks like exactly like my grandmother, and you know what I mean, her family.
Is that where
Um,
the majority of the family is in Mass?
Yep, they've been around here for the longest time, and that's the people that are from, I guess that Connecticut lineage and everything.
We're definitely really interested in Augusta Loomis specifically, and I was wondering, like, had you heard her name before, and do you know much about like the Loomis or the Elke family? Have you heard anything?
Yes, yes. So I heard about that as well. Mark as well had told me about that. Or not, they're married into the Anderson or something like that.
Augusta's mother was Mary Elke, and she married someone named Fordyce Loomis, and they had Augusta, and then Augusta married James Anderson.
Ah, okay, okay.
Were there any specific family members you had like a particularly close relationship with growing up?
As far as like my grandfather's people, it was like not really. Like I didn't know till like later on. Like most of I guess the cousins that are like around my age are my mother's people. My grandfather actually he had two children. Like a little bit after I was born. You know what I mean? A couple years after I was born. So I was really close to them. And that's Michael and Joshua and Doyen. But that's my grandfather's children, So I grew up with them, and they lived in Malden, and they lived in the Everett area, and which is like all in that Medford, Boston area. My grandfather, I would see him occasionally. So mostly like my connection would be my grandfather. His brothers and I believe his mother owned a home on Woodbine Street, right off of Warren Street in Roxbury. So I used to go over there as a kid, but I would always run around in the yard and all that. And his brother's children had kids and they lived in that house. When I was around there, like 5, probably 6 years old, they were probably like 18, 19. Cause I remember seeing like all the word up, for photos of all the rap stars they used to hang them up on the wall. So like her whole room was like that. And I was like, I always thought that was dope. And as far as her brothers, like they was older, so I didn't get to see them a lot. And they died young. And I had went to one of their funerals when I was like probably just getting out of junior high. But yeah, I didn't that's who I knew. My grandfather's like brothers, they died young too. I just only met his sisters and they're
Mhm.
still living right now, some of them.
How do you think, I guess, just like your relationship to learning about your family history has like affected the way, I guess, you go about your life and just like who you are in general?
I guess it just makes me happy and proud to know, you know?
Has this
Thanks.
shifted how you document your history? Have you started to take more photos or maybe journal, or how do you keep track of your history?
We just have lots of pictures. Some stories. Everybody has, family stories. We haven't like really documented, like wrote nothing down. You know what I mean? Which I mean probably should.
I think for our project, even just us learning more about you helps us shape Augusta's story. Because one question that we asked another family member was about like resemblance. Like, do you look like your relatives? Like, is there a feature that you see being passed down? And they've been able to answer that question, and we've been able to kind of get an image of how Augusta would have looked. Like, did they pass as Black or did they not?
Mm,
Skin tone. Like, it's those type of questions where we're
yeah,
able to see your traditions. Like, is that something that is common from another family member? Like, maybe you
right.
didn't know. Yeah. So those.
So yeah,
Yeah.
even that, I didn't even know you guys were getting that, you know what I mean, down to that. So that's even we want to know that too. But you know what I mean, looking at it, seeing things that I've seen, always looking light skinned. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Except for like my grandfather's father, which I believe is James Anderson, right?
Mhm.
And I heard he's very dark
Yeah.
skinned. And we was trying to trace him. I don't know if it was correct or not, but they were saying he was in Vermont. He looks like my grandfather, man. Like he looked like he could be part of my grandfather. I forgot the guy's name, but it's an Anderson.
Yeah.
He's light skinned though, and he owned like an apple orchard up there in Vermont.
Wow.
And yeah, and he actually worked for the president or something like that. And I was looking at that, but I wasn't sure if I could connect that, but he looked just like my grandfather, have the same features. And as far as my father's mother, I don't know much about her. I know some of what he told me, and they was living in Lynn. He was telling me something about that. Her father, he was back and forth from Detroit, and he was like an inventor or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his daughter was like fighting, trying to fight in court for his properties or whatever it was that he owned, that he created.
Do you know much
Yeah,
about the family in Lynn? Because we actually recently interviewed someone who also she grew up in Lynn. Do you know Evelyn? If
Evelyn.
not, no worries. We just thought I just thought it was interesting because she mentioned that she grew up in Lynn with her family.
Wow, really?
Hmm.
I don't. I think so. All right. As far as I know, my grandfather had a sister that still lived out there in Lynn,
Hmm.
and she was very. I mean, she was very old. I never met her though. I never got to meet her, and I know Evelyn is my grandfather's mother's name.
Oh
You know
wow.
what I mean? Her
Oh,
name is Evelyn. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that's her name. So,
wow. We've
yeah.
we've noticed with your family, it's either Sterling that's been passed down or Evelyn, which is now that we've recently learned. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, and Sterling, yeah, Sterling. And Sterling goes into Elkie too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you know what I mean? And that's like, wow. You know what I mean? It's deep. And Sterling's still going on. There's a younger Sterling
Oh,
today.
that's
Oh,
really
wow.
Y'all
Yeah.
try to get my grandfather on here. I don't know why. You know, he's like shy. You know what I mean? You don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's like key. You know what I mean? Him and his sisters, they
Hmm.
know. You know what I mean? They know what's going on. But yeah, he definitely had a sister. She was living out there forever. You know what I mean? For a long time. We even lived in Lynn. You know what I mean? Me and my mother lived in Lynn
Wow.
for a while. You know what I mean?
I was wondering if there are any religious trends you've noticed in your family.
She never got too deep in that. We never went to church. You know what I mean? But I know that my grandfather's sisters, they heavy on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Their family is heavy on the church. It might also be very deep to the history as well. Because even like I don't want to jump too much, but seeing like the Rachel Elkie and her parent being McDuffie, and I know that they were heavy on religion as well. And I believe they were indigenous tribe to Long Island, something like that. But nah, I'm not too heavy on religion on
Okay.
this.
where do you, I guess, what do you think are like the next steps, or like where do you see this like as a part of your future? Um, yeah, just like
Um,
learning about
I would like to be very involved in it. Like I know I kind of like brushed it off earlier, but like I want to be more involved in it. I want to get everybody together in on it because it would make it better. It would make more of an impact, I would think, especially knowing that there's a lot of descendants that are still around. And it's crazy because we don't really contact each other like that. You know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
not speaking to each other on a regular basis. That's difficult. But I would like to have like at least like a yearly thing, make it mean something. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us and to share such enlightening information about your family. I think it was really nice for us to connect different pieces together. I think we even left with some questions that I feel like I want to do more research and get
Oh,
answered.
yes, I know there's a lot more to do. There's so much to do. Like, cause I'm like, I mean, I just touched the surface of what's there, and I'm like, it's crazy. I need to see it. I need to know. My father's like, yeah, you're a dreamer. You always dreaming big. You know what I mean? And I'm like, but I know it's like it's more deep and complex than that because all of my family has been in these areas for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And we just like I really want to dig deep on that because I don't want to just brush it off and be like, yeah, we're just slaves. Y'all just came from Africa. Y'all just, yeah, I mean, 1800s is where y'all came from. And then, see, I mean, seeing people from the past in 1700s and they're out here, I mean, getting their people back from people stealing them. Like, I mean, like, that's something you need to know. And like, so,
Yeah.
as far as like my grandmother always talking about, she was like, yo, back in the day, like she had to like go and get the kids from the neighborhood and like bring them to like go fight. You know what I mean? Because there was like stuff like that going on. Like, you know what I mean? But everybody in like the Boston, Massachusetts area, all their families knew each other. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And now it's like they don't know. You know what I mean? They don't really know. You know what I mean? Because the family's been broken up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's broken up. So nobody really knows each other. And there's a lot of people that are related, don't even know. They're out here living in the same areas. And it's like that on every side of my
Yeah.
family that I've seen. You know what I mean? It's deep, it's complex, it's very complex. And I know that my grandfather brought up something too about, I believe, South Carolina or North Carolina. And I don't know about that, but I know his mother was saying something about that. So Evelyn, I'm pretty sure she might have some Southern ancestry in there too as well. But I can give you stuff. I'll compile it. You don't even have to go there. I'll compile it all and I'll just send it to you guys to get
Yeah,
it
no,
all
we
together.
appreciate anything you can do. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Don't
just
stress
thank
yourself
you.
out over it. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
We look forward to meeting up with you soon. And thank you. Take care.
Have a
All
great
right,
one.
you too.